friends, and welcome. I am so glad you're here. I'm excited to sit down and get cozy with you and answer some questions. And what the heck, let's just dive right into it. The first one I got is who/what is your biggest inspiration for creating art? Holy moly. I have so much to say about this. What first comes to mind, because I encounter it and interact with it so often, is the artists that I follow online that are regularly putting out work in the form of YouTube videos and illustrations that are on Instagram and going up in their shop updates and things like that. So I will put some honorable mentions on the screen. It's by no means a comprehensive list. There are so many, but these are just some of the ones that I have their art on my walls in front of me and I look up to it for inspiration. And when I look through my saved Instagram photos, it's like a ton of their stuff. Or Kyle Farron, for example, is the artist behind my favorite board game, Root. And every time I play Root, I just want to go draw and create little whimsical animal characters because he's so incredible at that. Yeah, my dream would just be for my art style to just kind of look like a mashup of all of these people's work, which in my opinion is actually what art style is, in my experience, and I'm only who knows how far into this journey, but art style comes when you have spent enough time copying enough other people that little bits and pieces from all of those different people start to form together into your own version of a style. And then another category of my inspirations comes from my friends who are fellow artists. I am really lucky to have a lot of creative friends, both in real life and ones that I've made online, and getting to see what they do and talk to them about their process and work through things with them is one of the greatest gifts as a creative person that I think I have. It gives me so much inspiration. And then there's the people who I would categorize as more of like historical figures in art. People like Van Gogh and Monet and Beatrix Potter are kind of bigger names of historical people who are big inspirations to me. Also, certainly worth an honorable mention is Creative Pep Talk, which is a podcast hosted by Andy J. Pizza. And if you are a creative person in any facet of your life and you have not listened to this podcast, you need to go listen to it right now. It's so good. It has pulled me out of the depths of creative despair more times than I can count. And Andy gives the most amazing, actionable tools to develop your skills and grow as a creative person, whether you want to do it as a career or you just want to be more creative in your daily life. I cannot say enough good things about it. And then the final thing I want to mention on this subject is actually something I learned from Creative Pep Talk, which is to look for inspiration in everyday life. So when you're feeling stuck creatively, instead of like trying to just plow through those crappy feelings, which sometimes you do need to do, it depends on the situation, but sometimes it can be really good to just take a step back from it and go for a walk, or go see a friend, or go try something challenging that's completely separate from creativity, or even on a greater scale, if you're kind of struggling in general, just take a creative break for a couple days or a week or whatever you need and go have some life experiences. Because what I learned from Creative Pep Talk that has been so important to me is that what makes an artist and their artwork compelling is not necessarily raw talent or skill, it's authenticity. We, I think, are all naturally drawn to authenticity and naturally averse to fakeness or pandering, and I think that it takes infusing your real life and your real experiences into your artwork to make it authentic, and it takes going out and living your life to be able to do that. Okay, next question. Favorite medium to create art with. I love typos, they're so good. Yeah, I have a lot of favorite mediums. I actually recently put out a favorite art supplies video. I'll put the little link up in the corner for you if you want to go watch that and talk about art supplies for a full video. But to kind of quickly summarize, I am primarily a digital artist. I got back into art again after not really doing it very often for a really long time because I got Procreate on my iPad and I just fell in love with how, I think the main thing that drew me into it in the first place was that it was waste-free and therefore guilt-free for me. Like, I always kind of had this reluctance to waste paper and create stuff that was just going to get stashed in a box or a folder. and that was really getting in my way of making art, especially when I wasn't really happy with where my skill levels were at. So then being able to get an iPad and develop my skills digitally where I could just delete it after if I didn't want it, and all the things I did want to keep not taking up any space, it made such a difference for me in being able to practice more, and therefore also got me back into working with more traditional mediums again. So now I do a little bit of everything, but I probably spend the most time doing digital work. And then just a couple of my favorite traditional mediums lately are acrylic gouache, Prismacolor, colored pencils, and also just plain old sketching pencils like what I'm using here. I've been really into pencils that are softer and with higher blackness lately. Like this is an 8B pencil. I really like how I can get a really high level of contrast just with one pencil, not having to switch around and use different ones because I am lazy. I love this next question / request. One thing you would want to tell your younger artist self. This is way more than one thing, but the first thing that comes to mind is that I really wish I knew that it was okay to spend time doing creative stuff, even if it was bad, even if it was didn't feel like it was a useful or productive use of time. That's something I still struggle with. I think part of the reason that I got into trying to make art a business avenue for myself is that I could really justify spending the time on it if I was making money from it. And now I think I have a much healthier attitude towards it, which is that I just love it so much that I want to be able to do it as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to have it either supplement or completely make up your income. So that is why I do what I do. But allowing myself to be creative just for the sake of having fun with it is something that I have always struggled with and continue to get better at. But I wish I had learned that and started working on it younger so it wouldn't still be such a challenge. Another thing I wish I could tell my younger artist self is that to be good at something means you have to spend a lot of time first being bad at it. And that sounds like such a simple thing to say, but I think I thought for a long time that I used to not have a growth mindset about things like art. I used to think that you either had it or you didn't. And I think I would have gotten back into art and drawing and painting a lot sooner if I had realized from the start that we all have a capacity to grow and get better at things. And yes, some people have natural talents for certain things, and yes, some people find it easier to learn certain things than others, but as cheesy as it sounds, the sky's the limit if you're willing to put the time in. The next question is, what's one of your biggest goals for your art / business? And I kind of started to touch on this a little bit when answering the last question. I would say that as far as art goes, my main goal with art is to keep loving it as long as possible and for it to be able to fulfill me as much as it does for as long as possible. And I'm trying to do a lot in my practice to make sure it stays that way. And as far as my business goes, kind of what I mentioned before, my goal is for this to help supplement my income so that I have more freedom to do it more often. And that was kind of a generic goal, so I'll give a more specific one as well, which is that my goal for my business this year is to be making a net positive income. I think I came close to I was probably at about net zero for how much I spent on business expenses versus how much I made last year. And I'm hoping that by the end of this year, I will have a consistent monthly income coming in from the various income streams that I'm trying to set up, YouTube being one of them. In response to that statement, my brain said, this would be a good time to remind people to like and subscribe because that will help you reach your YouTube goals. But I have such a strong aversion to reminding people to like my videos and subscribe to my channel that I just don't do it. It's so stupid. I don't know why. I just think that I haven't come up with a way to do it that feels authentic and that feels like organic, and so I just don't do it. But hopefully that setup was organic enough to remind you to do it without me actually having to outright say it. Alright, next question. What are some tips for someone starting to look into art markets to attend this year? I feel highly underqualified to answer this question because I have done a grand total of 3 in-person art events. One of them was technically called a showcase, one was technically a market, and one was technically a craft fair. Like, they're It's basically the same in how you have to prepare. But anyways, my biggest tip would be to really look into what you're signing up for, because you generally have to pay a fee to be there. And especially if you're first starting out, it would be so rough to show up to a market that isn't well attended and where you couldn't make your table fee back if you're paying out of pocket when you're just getting started. I know that would have been really devastating if that is what had happened for me. So do try and talk to some people who have done the market, read some reviews, like make sure they're doing good advertising and stuff before you send them your money and put all the effort into coming out, because your time and effort is valuable. I'm going to answer one more art-related one so I have time to sneak in a couple fun, silly, goofy ones. The next one is favorite time of day to draw. For me, it is 100% the morning. I am a morning person to my core. I am functioning at peak levels from like 6 a.m. until noon, and it's just downhill from there. And drawing falls into that category too. I do my best drawing and idea sketching and all that, anything related to drawing earlier in the day. I do sometimes draw in the evening when I'm really in the mood for it, but it's definitely never my best stuff. Okay, on to the silly stuff. The next one is, do you have any pet peeves? Of course I do. Everybody has pet peeves. If you say that you don't, you are lying. I honestly probably have lots I could dive into, but I don't want to be all negative like that, so I will just say one that I'm going to turn into like a general PSA. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people extend the lane when they're driving. This is when you make a turn and instead of staying in the lane that you turned into, just immediately extending into the other lane. So technically this is illegal, and you're only allowed to do it when there is something blocking you within a certain number of meters in the lane that you're going into. And the reason why is because it's very easy to not be paying attention to the traffic that's coming into that other lane that you're extending into, and it's very easy to get in an accident. I was in an accident where I am quite confident that the other driver did this, but there was no way to prove it, and he didn't own up to doing it in his report, so I was determined to be at fault. So don't extend the lane. Just get in your lane and then signal and lane change like you're normally supposed to. Okay, rant over, and the next question is a very important one. Pupper updates? The puppers are very good. Parker is 3 now, and he still loves fetch and belly rubs more than pretty much anything except for Kelsey. He definitely loves me a lot too, but Kelsey is his person, which is okay because I am Penny's person, and it's a nice balance. And Penny just turned 1 in December. She is still a wiggly-butted little angel who just brings so much joy into the world, I can hardly even stand it. One of my favorite things about Penny is if there is a human in her vicinity, she needs to be touching them, cuddling them at all times. If you sit down on the couch near her, she will get up and come plop down either beside you or on top of you. We sleep at night with her usually either like resting her head on me like a pillow, or sometimes she has her little forearms up on me as well. When she was a puppy, she would fully sleep on me, but now she's too heavy for her to do that. But sometimes I let her do it anyways and just not breathe. It's fine. Okay, y'all, we're down to the very last question, and I am certain that it's one that you all have been just dying to ask, and you're going to be so glad that someone asked it. If you had a really big mushroom on your head, how would you handle people always trying to take bites? So I have to assume that this is based on my Fungal Studio logo, and the first thing I have to say is that the mushroom upon my head is based on a fly agaric mushroom, and those are poisonous and hallucinogenic, so if you take a bite out of that, you're going to be tripping balls, and not in a good way. Like, you will be very ill and not have a good time, so do not do that. That is what I would say. This question was unsurprisingly submitted by my fiancé Kelsey, who is arguably the silliest human that I know, and that is a huge reason why I love him, so thank you for making me laugh with this one. My goal is to keep this one at about 15 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up here. So thank you so much for submitting your questions. I had so much fun with this, and I hope that I get to do more of them in the future. I feel like we all, I've never met someone who doesn't just light up when you get asked a good question, so having the chance to do this was super fun. So thank you for the really thoughtful questions. Let's do it again sometime. I hope you have a super great day, and I'll see you around. Take care, stay warm, stay cozy, stay gold, pony boy. That's my new outro. I'm keeping that.